now what I'd like to do is bring up a recent client, Rafal from Hex Trust. Come on up, Rafal. He's a CTO for Hex Trust, and they are digital asset custodian. And we're just going to have a quick little roundtable panel discussion, and I'd like to invite Ross up here to moderate that. So I guess, I don't know if you need.
Thanks, Peter. So hopefully that wasn't too deep for all of you, but the important part there for me was that Peter kind of unpeeled the onion and just one thing that we have, secure services containers, and hopefully prove to you why this technology is not only unique, but it's something you really should look into. So thank you for both coming back up here with me. Rafal, it's great to see you.
Thank you.
I know as the CTO of Hex, it's great that you're a client, but I think much more importantly is what you're going to do with your clients around the world. So, you know, the market cap for digital assets is pretty big. It's about 250 billion, or 270 billion, I guess. But the market for derivatives is 600 trillion. So that's a big gap. Digital assets is growing, but you know, why should traditional banking and finance, a lot of the folks in this room, why should they be concerned about digital assets? What's your view?
Well, yeah, in addition actually to the 600 trillion, we also have 180 trillion assets under custody. So the market is huge. So if we look at the current existing market cap of 260 billion, those are the cryptocurrencies, right? The Bitcoin, the Ethereum, they're great, but actually there is no real tangible assets behind them. When things become really interesting, when we take this 800 trillion, 600 trillion assets and realize they can be digitized on blockchain in a much more effective way than any other form of representation. So what we have seen so far, we have the stable coins. So stable coins is basically digitizing fiat currency, and that is a critical first step. Digitizing fiat on blockchain allows you to do end-to-end settlement and clearing on-chain, right? Removing all the different hops. Then when we start looking at kind of the next asset class is fixed income and OTC derivatives, right? They are complex financial instruments that have long-term legal obligations and contractual clauses. So they're perfect, again, to digitize on blockchain and enforce all these rules and contractual terms through the smart contracts. Then the next asset class that will get digitized is the private equity, right? So private equity, venture capital funds. Today, if you want to invest in a VC fund, you need to have at least $500,000 US, and it's going to get locked in for 7 to 10 years. Now imagine you take this VC funds and you tokenize them. It means people can invest a lot smaller amounts. It means you have liquidity, you can sell and trade your VC fund tokens, right? So that's going to open up a whole new asset class to the whole new number of people, right? Then we have the kind of traditional equity, right? So this is public equities, private equity, private companies. I think like public equity, well, we already have fairly efficient markets, so maybe that's going to be much later before it gets digitized. But what we're seeing is private companies, especially late-stage private companies, 2-3 years before IPO, they're starting to digitize the securities to kind of start unlocking this liquidity right before the IPO. So as you know, as we can see over the coming years, we're going to see all these hundreds of trillions of assets going to start moving and being digitized on blockchain. But what is the challenge with blockchain? It's very different, right? You take your existing back office system, it's not going to work, right? So you need this new level of infrastructure to be able to manage, operate, and transact these digital assets, right? So that's what we do in Hex Trust. So our mission is to enable financial institutions to participate and innovate in the digital assets markets, and we offer institutional custody, settlement and clearing, and issuance.
Thanks, Rafal. So, as proud IBM Z folks, you can tell people like Peter like to talk about what Linux One Secure Services Containers can do. You saw him, how he went through that. A lot of pride there. But what's more important actually is to listen to someone like HexTrust, like Rafa, about what you will do with that technology. How will you use Linux One Secure Services Containers to differentiate your company?
Yep. Oh, actually, the most important thing, I'm going to be able to sleep at night.
That's a good start.
That's a good
right?
one. I'll take that.
It's a good start.
But yeah, so I think Peter gave a very good presentation outlining all the different challenges that we face as a business. And if we get hacked, we are out of business, full stop. And the challenge with this digital assets, blockchain assets, is that basically transactions are irreversible, right? So this any error, any hack, especially in a public blockchain, you cannot reverse, right? So, okay, we can secure our private keys in the HSM, but right, it's all about everything else that happens before you actually sign this transaction into the blockchain. Like, we have to make sure there is no way that anybody in our company or outside the company can circumvent any of the approvals, authentication, policies. There's just no room for mistake, right? And as Peter was explaining, what the secure service container does, it allows us to execute all these workflows, all this logic, in a cryptographically proven way, in a confidential environment, right? Without ability for administrators or even me as a CTO to be able to do anything with it, right? I cannot interfere with it. I cannot change the code. I can have external auditors auditing our logic, our policies, right? So what this really allows us to do is to build kind of industry-grade enterprise systems with very complex workflows, and all these workflows are cryptographically ensured to be tamper-proof and confidential. And that will allow us to innovate. This is going to allow us to bring a lot more different digital assets, like the complex derivatives, the contracts, and all the rules associated with that.
Good. Thanks, Ralph. So, to Peter, let me direct this to you. IBM and Hex are working together. What do you see as the future in the digital asset space?
Well, I think the first thing is that there needs to be a lot more education. As it becomes more and more commonplace to talk about digital assets, most people will just like, well, I know how to do this. I'm technically savvy. I'm just going to go ahead and use my little toys over there to look after my crypto, right? And in fact, you really do need, to have a third-party custodian to do the work, who's certified, has a license. This is their business, right? So they can do it right. I mean, you don't have piles of cash sitting under your pillow. You use a bank, and you don't even think about it. Well, that's kind of where things are going to eventually will go with respect to digital asset custody. And so, we're sort of very early, and we are partnering with Hex to sort of, evangelize the message out there to all the different constituencies out there, as well as institutions and so forth. But also, we are in fact, going to market together as well, and talking with. In Asia Pacific, there's quite a number of banks that are moving into this space, and so we're going to, jointly operate together as a way to kind of bring digital assets, into the institutional space and really improve the confidence there is with respect to this. Because at the end of the day, you know what? If something's too hard, you're not going to do it. You're just going to keep doing whatever you do today. So what we want to do is change the sort of, crypto. We want to change it to be, oh yeah, no big deal, just another payment rail we can use, right? And that's the confidence that we want to instill in the market.
Yeah, and just from an IBM point of view, I mean, we're very much behind blockchain and digital assets, digital ledger technology, and how we really think it's going to change the world, how it's going to make the world more agile, cut out a lot of the cost of doing business, cut out a lot of the time of doing business, days of doing business sometimes, now down to seconds, and it really is going to change the world over time. And hopefully we didn't scare you too much talking about all the holes from a security point of view that are out there in the market today with cryptocurrencies and other digital asset solutions. We weren't trying to scare you. We're just trying to make you aware so that you don't go down the wrong course and you consider technology that could really eliminate and make yourself immune to those different types of threat vectors that, again, Peter and Rafael have discussed here today. So with that, thank you for joining us today. Really
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
And thanks.
Thanks, sir.